Our last question is from the CSU President, Micah White, for all candidates. Being a CSU executive is tough, and sometimes you have to make unpopular decisions that you believe are right for the student body. How will you weather the storm of negative feedback from your fellow students and student organizations? And we'll begin with Mr. Anshin.
Wow, Micah, that's a tough one. I'm not gonna lie. Thanks. So, you know what? I think that is tough, and I think that is why it is so important to have a good working relationship between the president, the vice president of student affairs, programming, and finance, and the representative body, so that it's not one person making a decision for the entire university or the entire organization. If you have that kind of communication going on, then I think that it's not an issue, and I think that the different things that come up they'll be slim and few between. Let's put it that way. So, but let's go with the question, and something does come up, and it's a tough issue. I think that it is important to take into consideration what the majority of the students on this campus are feeling and what is best for them. I know that I can think of the Janet Smith case of being a tough thing as CSU funded that event. And looking back on that, I think it is good that we said, let's have a forum after the event, let's discuss it even more, and let's have other committees set up to decide how we truly want to handle an event like this. And I think that is how we can learn from a tough situation and move on. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anshin. Mr. Rich.
I think a lot of it really comes down to, with that negative feedback that, inherently kind of fills up. There are some times where CSU has to make quick decisions that in the end aren't necessarily what the students wanted. We need to, rather than waiting until after we have made those decisions, we need to make sure we're engaging students earlier on. Like I've kind of said throughout this, one of my big things is really opening up the policy side of CSU and making sure that when we are trying to work towards a policy stance or even on a funding stance, making sure that those hearings and that our board meetings are more open to students, inviting students to come and grant their opinions, reaching out to student leaders on campus and making sure that we really are properly representing what the student body wants. And excuse me, I also think this really comes down to just kind of my overall mission statement of that we shouldn't have to deal with so much of the negative feedback if we are more responsive to students, if we are more transparent and are opening the communication with students while we are working on issues and on funding. And finally, we need to make sure that we're more clear with students. We're putting all of our stances and all of our issues through than just meetings with administration and execs. We need to make sure that we're open about what we've been doing on issues so that hopefully we can engage the student issues before we've already passed it and not necessarily have to deal with the brunt of all that negative
Thank you,
feedback.
Mr. Rich. Mr. Hare?
As with any position that comes with a lot of responsibility, there's also going to be, a lot of criticism. CSU president might experience that. I want to let you know that as CSU president, I hope I don't, but I may make an unpopular decision, but I guarantee you that I will never make a decision that doesn't benefit the students. I think it's important for the CSU president to be open to criticism. It's a very public office, and I think that as president, I'm going to be willing to take criticism. I'll be able to respond to it and use it to make my leadership style better. I think it's also important to take responsibility for your actions. If I were to make a decision that everyone didn't like, I think I'd be the first one to step up and take the ownership for that decision. I believe in honesty, integrity, and fairness. And if we can promote those qualities within the CSU president, then I don't think we're going to have a whole lot of problems with people being, really responding negatively to our decisions. It might not be the most appeasing decision, but I think it's also important that we use our support systems, use the other CSU representatives. I'm friends with all these guys, and I have a lot of people who I know within CSU. Use our advisors, Michelle Starzik, Dr. Cernich. Learn from them. Take what they have to say before you make a decision. And then if something goes wrong, use them as your backbone to say, you know what, this is why we made that decision. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Hare. Mr. Miskimmons?
Well, I've been talking a lot about my experience and a lot of the things that are already well on their way. And believe me, when you're dealing with money, people get mad. So this too has been well underway. But no, it's when things arise with funding issues or in the past, I don't like to hide behind the emails. I personally set up meetings with the people who want to know more about why we didn't fund something, why we did fund something for that matter. And I have had to respond to a lot of events like the Janet Smith speaker that was brought to campus that was, we made sure was perfectly in the line of Jesuit teaching and Catholic teaching and on Creighton's mission before we even allocated the funding. But still, you're not gonna make everyone happy on campus, and so it's how you respond to these issues. And I feel like I've learned a lot about the issues that arise and learned how to deal with them, and so that will definitely carry through. But it's tearing down the wall that CSU may hide behind, and it's responding to the criticism that comes through the students or through the Creightonian, and it's really telling the students how we select a band for Fallapalooza. It's telling the students exactly why we didn't fund something or why we did fund something, and so response to the criticism and being open to the criticism is key to a successful administration.
Thank you, Mr. Miskimmons.
Thank you guys for coming out tonight. That was our final question. Would you guys help me in thanking all of our candidates for coming out this evening?